I want to talk about why we're in this state of lying, why we're living in this empire of lies, because we talk about this a lot. And I do these all access shows, and I get asked the question, how can we all the time? How can we save our country? How can we convince the Democrats? How can we beat back the left? And I want to try and give a response to that by defining where it is we are. And as you know, I've been going through this theme. I won't harp on it forever, and this will probably be, we'll move on from this. But the theme has been talking about the God-made man and God-made history. In other words, the idea that we're characters created by God and a story being written by God, and we don't fully see the extent of our character or the unfolding story that we're actually in. And we have to trust that all things work to the good for those who love God. And the one thing we have some control over is whether we will adhere to his will and follow his will and become the people that we are meant to be, because we really don't have full control, or maybe even any control, of the outcome. So I know I've told this story before, but to me, it's a profound story. It's one of those stories that haunts you your whole life long. When I was a young man, I spent the night with a lady who was a congenital liar. And she lied all night long into the morning. And everything she said was a lie. And when I would catch her out in a lie, she would simply replace the lie with another lie. It was really quite remarkable. Just to give a made-up example, if she said she had a disease, and I said, well, those are not the symptoms of that disease, she would say, well, no, it's not really that disease, it's a disease like it. And when I said, you don't have that disease, she would say, well, I didn't want to tell you. I said that because I didn't want to tell you I had this disease. And in fact, she had no disease. She was perfectly healthy. She was perfectly fine. And by the end of the night, by the time morning came, I found that I was living inside her lie, so that it's not exactly that I was starting to believe her, it was that I was starting to react as if what she said was true, because I was debating with her what disease she had when she had no disease. And the reason for that is I'm not insane, right? It takes an insane person to think that every single thing he's being told is a lie, right? To think that you're living in the matrix or a simulation, is the kind of thing a crazy person believes. And yet right now we are effectively living in a simulation created by this massive telecommunications media empire that the left has assembled, the woke businesses that have taken on becoming part of the oligarchy with government that the government wants to form, and our government officials who are being backed up by the media. So we're kind of living in this matrix, and you have to be insane to think that that's true, and yet it is true, right? So, we've talked about the kind of lies. This is the least racist country on earth, but we're being told it's a white supremacist. There's a stain on our soul. There's a stain on our soul. And let me tell you, those soul stains are some of the hardest stains to get out. You got to bleach your soul, and then your soul gets all stiff. We've got this, our souls are stained with racism. But in fact, no, this is the only country on earth since the Roman Empire, and it's much different than the Roman Empire. This is the only country on earth that even thought that we could run a country without having a race-based country, right? It's the only time anybody has thought of that idea. We're told that Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is a hate-filled, terrorist, racist group. Yet they're having a hilarious crisis. They call it a crisis, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which is just this louche, corrupt group that runs the Golden Globes Award. And they have been forced to apologize because their former long-term president emailed a copy of an article to members that call Black Lives Matter a racist hate group. So we're in the crisis because somebody told the truth about Black Lives Matter. We were told it was very important that people don't go to church, because even if they're outside, they can't go to church. But if they're packed together in a demonstration, it's fine. And we were told those demonstrations were mostly peaceful when they were riots. We're told that climate change is an existential threat, right? And anyone who raises a question about this is a denier, as if you were a Holocaust denier. This is a really big lie because, of course, climate change disaster, there's climate change and, we should always take care of our environment, but climate change disaster is a computer model that has been largely disproved in its most disastrous forms, the ones people like AOC sell. So to say that we can't tell the future of a complex system is just the simple truth. Whereas to deny the Holocaust, one of the most documented atrocities in human history, to say that that never happened is a little bit loony, right? So there's total difference, but this is a lie. And all of these things, people start to live within these lies, because even if you deny the lie, even if you fight with the lie, that lie becomes the story. Katie Porter, the congresswoman from California, was questioning crazy teenager Greta Thunberg in a fact-finding, one of these fact-finding things. And this is what she said, this is what Katie Porter said about her child, who's got 30.
Ms. Thunberg, I just wanted to ask you one question. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I have 3 kids. And I told my 9-year-old daughter that I was going to be speaking with you. And I said, what do you think about the climate change? And she said, the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. And I asked her how that made her feel. And she said it made her feel angry. What should I tell my daughter? And how should I help her and the youngest generation bear the emotional toll of the actions that we're taking, fossil fuel companies are taking to destroy our planet?
By the way, if you actually believe that we're all going to die soon, you don't feel angry, you feel terrified, just so you know, because her emotions don't hook up to what she's saying. But the thing is, Katie Porter's child is not crazy. This is what she's being told, right? In order for a 9-year-old to say, oh, all the adults around me are lying and making stuff up, that would be nuts. That would actually be a mentally disturbed child. But this is a sane child, so she believes all the lies she's being told, and in this case, the distortion that's being told. And by the way, about Greta Thunberg, Knowles, I think, still can't go on Fox News because he called her a mentally ill teenager, which is exactly what she is by her own admission. We're told our gender is a choice. You know, our gender obviously is an assignment. I'll try and talk about this more in the mailbag. Gender is a responsibility that we have to manifest a portion of the nature of God. And each time we're lied to, we have to address the lie so that the lie becomes the narrative. Right now, we are all talking about race in America. I talked about this last week. We're all talking about police shootings. They're not the story. They're not an issue. It's seriously, it is not an issue. High crime and dysfunction in black communities and minority communities, this is an issue. The end of the mom and dad family is a huge issue. The failure of our churches and the loss of faith that's come along with that is an issue. The deep disrespect and hostility for the humanizing, urgent, central work of homemakers, wives, and mothers, who C.S. Lewis said basically was the central profession, and all other professions are built to support it. These are the people who make men, who make children human, who make domiciles into homes, and who make life human. They make life human. And by the way, if you are a homemaker or a wife and mother, I know how deeply disrespected you are and how people talk to you and how people ignore the thing that you are doing. And it is a deep, deep problem in our country and in our society in general. I'll tell you, this is straight up true. You are seen. You're not just seen by me. You are seen in the halls of heaven. And when you walk through the gates of heaven, the angels will take off their starry crowns and bow their head with respect. And that is just the living truth, because as we know, the things that are not appreciated on the earth are frequently appreciated above the earth. Fighting back against these lies makes the lie the narrative. If you have to defend the fact that you're a homemaker, if you have to defend the mom and dad family already, if you have to defend the fact that police shootings aren't the problem, police shootings become the narrative. And that's why that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. And it's distorting for all of us, especially those who believe it. There's a University of London professor named Eric Kaufman. He's done this survey, and he talked about what effect all this talk about racism has had on people. He did a study about it. He was talking to Ben Dominic on Fox News. This is cut 2.
Just to give you a concrete example that is rooted in undisputable fact, I asked the question in my surveys to both black and white respondents, which is the more likely cause of death for a young black man in America? Is it a car accident, or is it to be shot by police? It's a clear fact that it's about 10-1 in favor of car accidents over a police bullet, and yet 8 in 10 African-American Biden voters and 7 in 10 whites who believe that Republicans are racist, that white Republicans are racist, actually said that it was police that were more likely to be the cause of death for young black men. So this is leading people to have a distorted picture of reality, and that then feeds into a whole series of political attitudes.
The lies become the narrative distorts the way you look at things, and then the way you look at things distorts your politics. And so people, ask me this question: How can I convince the left? How can I save the country? And they talk a lot about the people who are rioting. They talk a lot about, people having this kind of overreaction to the conviction of Derek Chauvin, crying, "Oh, finally, people see it. Now things will be so much better." People talk about the madness of crowds. It comes from a 19th century book called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. But I don't think the people are deluded, and I don't think the crowds are mad. I think they are sane. I think they are too sane to believe they are being lied to all the time, when in fact they are being lied to all the time. That's why you're seeing these reactions. That's why you're seeing a child who thinks the world is going to end and everybody's going to die. That's why you find people who think more blacks are killed by police gunfire than by traffic accidents. That's why you see people weeping with joy when Derek Chauvin is convicted of murder. They're being lied to by the president. They're being lied to by their politicians and leaders. NBC lies to them, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Coca-Cola, Delta, Disney. Why? Why are they all lying? Now, we were talking a little bit about this on the Backstage show, and you can have all kinds of big theories, and a lot of those theories have a lot of truth in them. We were talking about utopian thought, and we were talking about all the ways in which utopian thought has to cover for itself. But just on a basic political level, let's just talk on a basic political level. We're talking about these stories, these false stories, because the true stories, the true problems in our country are problems of policy that the people in power caused. Their policies caused the problems. The failures in our country are the elite's failures. And if they direct us to the true problem, we would blame them, right? Whereas if they turn us against one another, if they point, oh, there's a white man, if they have the white scare going on, and the white people then see the black people rioting and they get angry at their black neighbors and their black fellow citizens, we are not paying attention to them. It is they who did this. It is the elites, the people in power, the people who run the corporations, the people who run the journalistic corporations and the journalistic outlets, the people in the White House and the people in Congress who have created the problems they're blaming on the last guy. I always say the police officer is the last guy to deal with a social problem. He's just cleaning up the mess. It's the people in power who cause those things. Welfare policies, right? Welfare policies. Do you know that before the Great Society, which was Lyndon Johnson's absolutely huge program, just like what Biden's doing now, there's an absolutely huge program of welfare and money transfers. Before that, after the Civil Rights Act got rid of Jim Crow, black people started rising into the middle class at a good rate. After those policies, they stopped rising into the middle class. They slowed. Their rise into the middle class slowed. Their educational policies, the left's connection with the corrupt teachers' unions that still will not open the schools. That is sapping the energy and the education and the forward-looking progress of blacks out of slums and out of difficult situations. The philosophy that damaged the family, right? It was welfare and feminism that destroyed the black family. Blacks used to have a 25% out-of-wedlock births. Now they have a 75% out-of-wedlock birth, which is worse than it was in slavery days when Democrats were actually selling families to different parts of the river, right? It's worse than that. Their policies have actually created a worse situation. And why? Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a prominent Democrat, warned that this would happen. He said, if you start giving welfare money to people when they have illegitimate children, they'll have illegitimate children. You get what you pay for, right? And the feminists said, well, that's just sexist because a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. You go to a prison today, you see a lot of guys, almost all the guys behind bars today are guys who were raised by fish who didn't have a bicycle, right? So they go after the symptoms. They go after the black man shot by the police because the cop is out there trying to save his life and make sure he gets home okay, dealing with the problems they created, dealing with the problems their policy created. And never forget, these policies have brought in trillions of dollars in tax money that the Democrats can then use, and sometimes the Republicans too, can use to pay for votes to say, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, we're going to give you this free money, all this free money. it's not free. It's our money that they have taken to buy power for themselves, and they get richer and richer and more powerful. You know what it's like? It's like a cigarette maker telling us that the crisis we have in this country is not enough cough drops. You know, oh, you're coughing blood, you're coughing up blood. Damn it, you know, it's the cough drop companies. We have got to do something about the cough drop companies. Have a cigarette and I'll get right on it. That's what this is like. An entire power structure. We are now surrounded by an entire power structure whose policy failures and whose incredible debt and whose moral failures have made it necessary for them to distract us from their increasing power and wealth by turning us against one another. We are living inside their lies. And when you ask me, what should you do? What should we do? You know, I know I talk about this a lot, but it's been haunting me recently. It's been haunting me, the trial of Jesus Christ, where the crowd comes out and they shout, crucify him. And Pontius Pilate, the Roman ruler, says, I'll release somebody for the Passover, I'll release a prisoner, and they call for Barabbas, a criminal, to come out. They elevate a criminal and they murder the truth. Give us Barabbas, crucify the Christ. And when I hear them talking about George Floyd and Dante Wright and what wonderful, wonderful people these guys were, people who have abused women and robbed women and held women at gunpoint, and they're saying, you know, here is Barabbas. Barabbas is the good guy. And when you read the Bible, it says of the crowd, the chief priests and elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. The crowd was not insane. It was not an extraordinary delusion and the madness of crowds. It was the sanity of people who could not believe that their leaders would stand in front of them with their faces hanging out and tell them lie after lie after lie. Even the saints panicked. And even the saints ran for their lives because they didn't know the story God was telling. They didn't know that the truth would come back. And when they did see the truth came back, the saints came back, even though it sometimes cost them their lives. So you ask me, what do we do? How do we convince? How do we change the country? How do we save the country? I think I have to ask you, what are you doing right this minute? Who are you right this minute? What are you showing people right this minute? Your school, your town, your job, your marriage, your family. What are you showing them? Who are you? What are you doing? And it's not just about serving on boards, though you should serve on boards. You should run for school board. You should show up at school board meetings. You should show up at town hall meetings. But it's what your kids see you do, what experience your wife or husband has when you walk in the door, what your coworkers see, the words that come out of your mouth. We are living in an empire of lies. We are being lied to and lied to and lied to. And in order for the truth to live, it has to live in you. And I know what I'm asking you to do. I know I'm asking you to take chances. I had a friend, I can't tell you the full story, but I had a friend canceled just yesterday in a terrible, terrible way. I know that it is a dangerous, dangerous time. This is the fight we're in. If the truth is going to live, it has to live in you. So when you ask me, how do we, how can we? The answer is, what are you doing? Who are you? Who are you being to the people around you? Not the people on TV, the people around you in the life you live and in the town you live in and in the community you inhabit. You have to represent the truth.